You are Locked On Wolves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
T-Wolves can't figure out the Pacers, apparently. Second loss to Indiana on back-to-back Mondays. Final score tonight, 119-103. What's going on back in the lab? Back at it. Another T-Wolves postcast episode right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. Your team every day. Jack Borman with me as always. Give him a follow at JRBorman13. Jack, just off the jump here, Jack, what in the world was that? Weak sauce. Wolves got outplayed again by the same team. Props to Indiana, man. They were the bigger, stronger, faster team tonight on both ends of the court.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, if you're the slower, softer NBA team and you play with a lesser sense of urgency than your opponent, you're going to lose 10 times out of 10. And you combine that with some poor passing and poor 3-point shooting, and you get yourself a game like you did tonight. But you got to give credit to the Pacers. Did a really good job imposing their will on both ends of the floor, and totally earned a well-thought win at home over the Wolves tonight.
Yeah, 100%. Lots to get into tonight, including why the Wolves just can't beat the Pacers anymore and where their lack of urgency and hustle and effort went tonight. Plus, the biggest turning point in the game. But first, quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by Game Time. Game Time, download the Game Time app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. That's LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase. All right, so Wolves, obviously, they're trying to wash out that bad taste in their mouth from last Monday's loss to the Pacers. Obi Toppin went Reggie Miller on the bit, 34 points, something like that. I really assumed they would just come out with a lot more energy, a lot more urgency tonight, but that was just wasn't the case. I mean, Pacers ran circles around them all night long on both ends of the court. Wolves had 14 turnovers. It felt like half of them were telegraphed passes that just got picked off, which is usually just kind of lazy play, bad awareness, bad IQ kind of stuff. But Ant and DDV combined 2 for 17 from three. Not going to win you many games when those guys go 2 for 17 from deep. And overall, again, like you said, Jack, just a softer team out there. Again, props to the Pacers, as you said, proving this wasn't a fluke from last Monday. They outplayed us 2 games in a row. They definitely deserve the dub more than Minnesota did tonight. 9 games above 500 now, 41-32. We'll talk about the Western Conference standings here in a sec. But big picture, Jack, another ugly loss to the same team in, an 8-day span. You drop another game back from Golden State, half game, I should say. You're tied with the Clippers now for the 7 seed. What's the aerial view of this Western Conference standings with, just 9 games to play when you look at the Wolves and the teams they're trying to catch up with?
Yeah, for sure. The Timberwolves entered this game 2.5 games back of Memphis, a half a game, who is the 5 seed, half a game back of Golden State, the 6 seed, and half a game up on the Clippers, who are the 8 seed. I don't know if Steph Curry ended up playing tonight in Miami for Jimmy Butler's return game, but sounded like he wasn't going to play. So he's got a pelvic issue, but is expected back on this road trip. And then, the Grizzlies have had Jaren Jackson Jr. back for the last few games, but they haven't had Ja Morant, who's going to miss another game tomorrow. And they've lost 3 of their last 4 and got news over the weekend that Brandon Clark is going to be out for the rest of the season. So, they might slip. And then Jokic has been out with an ankle issue and could be out for a few more games here. And the Wolves are now 4.5 back of Denver. So it seems a little ambitious that they'd catch them. But again, all of this just speaks to, I guess, if you're a Timberwolves fan, how frustrating it's got to be that this team just came out and didn't really play with a sense of urgency. They did not look like a team that had 2 days off over the weekend to kind of recalibrate and recharge and come back, well rested and ready to go. It was a very short trip, 45, 50-minute flight to Indianapolis. So about as easy as it gets on that front. And just a real bummer that they kind of let this one get away from them. And look, Indiana's a really good team, and the way that they like to play is what style of play kind of gives the Timberwolves the most issues. But at the same time, like, the Timberwolves have plenty of talent to be able to rise above that. Mm-hmm. And last season, we saw this Timberwolves team, with Cat especially. I think there was the first game Cat just dominated. The first game they played against Indiana last year, and then obviously you had the Ant game-saving block the last time this team was in Indianapolis. And so The Timberwolves did a much better job last season of imposing their will and kind of dictating the terms of the game and the style of the fight. And that just didn't happen at all in these 2 games against the Pacers. This year, I guess, the good news is that there aren't a whole lot of teams that like to play like the Pacers in the Western Conference. I think Oklahoma City might be the, kind of the lone exception to that.
And what do you mean by that? Give us the quick, just kind of elevator pitch on that. What stylistically, I guess, OKC and who else plays stylistically like the Pacers, and what do they do specifically?
Yeah, I think, first and foremost, the Pacers want to get out and run off of stops whenever they possibly can.
Yeah.
And they want to turn it into a track meet because, they don't have a lot of very good individual defenders in the half court. And, their whole deal is, we're going to play offense better than you're going to play offense. And in the Western Conference, I mean, there's just not a whole lot of teams that, really like to do that when you consider that, teams like Memphis and Oklahoma City and Houston and the Lakers, the Clippers are all teams that want to beat you with defense, not necessarily offense. And all of those teams, for the most part, except for maybe Oklahoma City, much prefer to play a more half-court style of game. And look, like the Rockets do a great job running off of turnovers, but I don't think that their main focus on every single possession is try to beat the opponent up the floor and just wear them down. And the other part of it too is that they have a pick and pop big for the most part in Miles Turner, whereas a lot of these bigs in the Western Conference much prefer to roll and play in the paint, and Turner much prefers to kind of play on the perimeter and be that playmaking hub and shoot threes like we saw him play tonight. So I think the other part of it too is it's just a super physical defensive team. When they're firing. And I think they try to, get at you with more physicality than more lateral quickness, and can make up for, some of their, inability to just play consistent pick and roll defense at the point of attack with Halliburton and Turner in that 2-man game by, getting Nesmith on the primary ball handler and having him be more aggressive and being able to hide Halliburton, in the corner more often. And, being able to, just kind of try to stay physical in that structure. But when teams are able to get the ball into the paint and then, kick it out and start moving it, that's when, their perimeter defense is really not very good. And they don't have a whole lot of rim protection on the inside because, Siakam is much more of a perimeter defender than an interior, backside help guy. And, Turner's a little slighter of build for a center, so guys can go through him a little bit easier. Mm-hmm. But
plenty more deep dive from this one. I want to talk about the turning point of the game. I'm assuming it has something to do with Halliburton. Plus, Rudy Gobert's night on the glass. We got to talk about that as well. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by FanDuel. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and official sportsbook partner of the NBA. Right now, FanDuel is giving you a chance at a huge return, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you win your first $5 bet. Why I love FanDuel? When you get the hunch in the middle of the game, you can go check out the latest stats. You can view live play-by-play and so much more, all on the same page where you place your bets. Again, $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you hit your first $5 wager. Go check it all out over at FanDuel.com. Get in on some NBA future action while you're there. Naz Reid, 6 Man of the Year odds still sitting at 4-1. All sitting up over at FanDuel.com. Again, check it all out over at FanDuel.com and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you hit your first $5 bet. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook and official sportsbook partner of the NBA.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
Jack, what was the turning point of this game? Wolves down, 6 at halftime, still in it, bled into the third quarter. Lead just kept getting bigger and bigger.
Yeah, no question about it. I think, the turning point for me was right away out of the half in the third quarter. That the Pacers started on an 11-2 run. Halliburton scored 8 of them, made a couple of threes, got into the paint, and then assisted on the other 3 points. And so it was, took the game from, 54-48 Pacers at the half, 6-point game to a 15-point Pacers lead. And then, the two teams just kind of traded runs from there on in, but the gap was just way too big for for the Timberwolves to make up. And I thought also, kind of told the story of the game, and that Jaden McDaniels just had nothing in terms of perimeter resistance for Tyrese Halliburton, and Jaden was essentially benched for the last quarter and a half of this game, and what was not the best showing for Jaden. And to Jaden's credit, he's really gotten the better of Tyrese Halliburton, over in the course of his career, and it's why the Timberwolves have had such a good record against the Pacers, for the last few years. And so it was a bit perplexing to see Jaden just really struggle to stay in front of a guy like Tyrese Halliburton. And because Jaden, Halliburton is somewhat quick, but he doesn't have the explosion that that a lot of the quicker guards like a Tyrese Maxey or a Ja Morant have. And so it was a little curious to me as to why he was unable to do that. And then the Wolves tried to start putting two on the ball to start this third quarter, and just weren't able to communicate behind that. And Halliburton was still able to get loose and make stuff happen. So it was just a really, it was the turning point for me. And I guess too is just unfortunate too, considering like we said off the top, that this Timberwolves team did such a good job dictating the fight and how it was won last season. The Timberwolves kind of physicality and brute force inside, they totally dominated the interior and prevented the Pacers from getting out and running and winning with pace and space and shooting. And that's not what happened tonight, obviously. So I think also the Wolves' inability to contain the dribble drive is also what allowed Indiana to get a ton of open 3-point shots. I mean, Indiana on the 3-point line, 13 of 35, 37%. I mean, like a pretty average night as far as NBA shooting goes, but I just felt a lot bigger than that, considering that the Wolves were just 9 of 35, 25.7%. And that third quarter really told the story. I mean, Indiana was 9 of 14 from 3, 64% that third quarter, while the Wolves were just 1 of 8. And the Wolves also had 5 turnovers in that quarter. And just a note on Obi Toppin, while we were talking about him, ain't no stopping Obi Toppin. He shot 13 of 19, 68% from 3 in the 2 games against the Wolves this year. Shot 33.8% on 228 shots against everybody else. He averaged 10 points a game against other teams in the league this year, averaged 27 against the Timberwolves. He's
drinking that Space Jam Looney Tunes juice in that Gatorade bottle or something. He's got some sort of serum or something in that locker room versus the Wolves, man.
It would have been nice to see a little bit more Jalen Clark to try to counteract some of that and just kind of sick Jalen Clark on either Halliburton or Obi Toppin to see if he could slow down one of them, because it was probably a pretty good bet that that he would have made one of those guys' lives a lot more difficult. And it just wasn't there. And then, kind of sticking with that 3-point conversation for the Timberwolves, when that was working or was not working, Ant was a key part of that. He was 1 of 11 from 3. He went 1 of 11 in both games against the Pacers this year. It was the first game that he was playing tonight with that right thumb laceration. He didn't have anything on that hand the other night. So something, obviously happened, whether that was at home or in practice or whatever the case may be, but had that wrap on his hand. And you got to give Ant credit for trying to give it a go tonight, but you just really have to question if he was healthy enough to play in this game, not only because of the 1 of 11 shooting, but there were also several times where the ball just you just dropped the ball because he couldn't, hold the ball with his right hand and lost control of it. And so that's certainly something where you're a little thankful now that the Wolves have 3 days off, and hopefully that he can get going. But the Timberwolves only had 10 free throw attempts tonight. I would have liked to see the Wolves, Ant specifically, try to get downhill way more and be more physical, because the Wolves just didn't bring the requisite physicality between Ant and Julius for the two of those guys to only have 8 free throw attempts, and the Wolves to only have 10 as a team. That's the fewest they've had in a game all season long tonight. What was unfortunate. I like the way that Dante DiVincenzo kind of realized that his 3-point shot wasn't falling, so he found some other ways to impact the game and try to get downhill. And I think that's probably where you missed Jaden McDaniels' offense a little bit. He was 3 of 7 tonight. All of his shots were from 2, and he was one of those main guys who was trying to get down in there. But again, a rare night where you just couldn't have Jaden out there because he was constantly getting getting beat defensively. So again, I think that it was also just a weird game, outlier game in terms of the Timberwolves passing. They had 17 turnovers, 14 of them were because of bad passes. And the Pacers scored 15 points off of those 14 bad pass turnovers. So I think, part of that was just that Ant and Julius weren't really able to make the game easier for themselves, for each other in this game, whereas that's something that we've seen both of them do a really good job of. Really, since Julius has come back from his injury. And I just thought that because they weren't able to really get anything going off the drive and stretch this defense out, that there just wasn't a whole lot of room for them to operate. And so just not really a game either where, Gobert's screening had a ginormous impact in this game. And we'll get into, Rudy's impact next segment. But yeah, it was just disappointing. Again, I thought that this was the biggest tell of a team that just didn't have the requisite sense of urgency when, a lot of these passes that they were making were just awfully careless and awfully cavalier. And I would have loved to see someone, whether it be Mike Conley or Dante or, Rudy, even, some of these guys just try to really tear into their teammates a little bit and implore them. Hey, you got to value
who's the leader? Who's the who's the coach on the court, which usually is Conley, right? In most cases, I guess, when you think coach on the court kind of situation, but who's the vocal guy though? Not just the X's and O's basketball IQ, Mike Conley. Who's the vocal guy? Has it felt like they've been missing that? Maybe not even just this year, but going back for a while now.
No, I don't know. I mean, they certainly miss Kyle Anderson as a guy that was willing to do that for sure.
Yeah.
But I don't necessarily think that that's the reason why they aren't as good as they were last season or why they've taken a huge step back this season. Mm-hmm. I think in part it's hard to nail some of that down, frankly. I think, when you have a guy like Mike and Rudy, I mean, think too, like Ant, Jaden, Naz, Nikhil, they've all been doing this for 5-6 years now. I don't think it's fair that, those guys need a grown-up in the room. And I mean, Joe Ingles has been around all year long too, is a guy that can command a locker room and all these guys look up to and have a ton of respect for. So it's unfortunate, especially considering that the coaching staff is all the same there too. But at the end of the day, like, I think the players just have to have more pride in what they're doing. Like, the Timberwolves coaching staff has done a great job of getting this offense a little bit more structure since Randall and DiVincenzo come back. They've run a ton of double drag up top with, different horns actions and variations off of that has really, I think, injected a lot of kinetic energy and just tempo into the offense and showing. It's been clear to me that guys have had a confidence in what they're doing on the offensive end of the floor because they were getting into stuff like that early in the shot clock. And there just hasn't been enough of that in these 3 games that they've lost. And so I think they just got to get back to it. I don't think it's anything that, is totally broken by any stretch of the imagination. I just think it's, you've really got to zone back in on what you were doing really well and focus on that. I don't think it's like, hey, coaches just have to kill these guys to try to get them to do something. I just think that, there's some things that they can change on the margins. And if you just value the basketball more, you're there. So again, I'm not really worried about this being a super systemic problem by any stretch of the imagination, but Luke, these guys only have 8 games left, right? 8 or 9 games left. And they're just running out of opportunities to gain ground because it's hard to just expect that you're going to gain ground by not playing and other teams above them losing. So hopefully we see that in the very near future here.
Yeah, again, time is running out for them to put it all together. We've seen the ceiling. They can go toe-to-toe with literally anybody in the league on a good night, but on a bad night, they've shown they're just still inconsistent and still waiting for them to put together a deep stretch, a long stretch of them playing great basketball for multiple games at a time. Real quick here, let's actually talk about Rudy Gobert before we go to segment 3 and preview that Suns game. It's too bad they lost because Rudy Gobert had a great game. 16 boards, man. He had like 11 boards at halftime. 16 boards, 16 points. But again, a waste when he can't get the dub, right? When I look back, too, I feel like he was kind of the only one down there doing the dirty work on the glass tonight. It felt like, anyways, just to the naked eye, it felt like he really had no help from anyone else either.
Yeah, For sure. That was the way that I felt as well. I mean, Rudy had 16 of the Wolves' 36 defensive rebounds tonight. And that's, a really, really high percentage in terms of the NBA today. And it was unfortunate that no one else really helped him out outside of Dante DiVincenzo, who had 9 rebounds, like I alluded to earlier, did a good job of trying to impact the game in other ways, even though his shot wasn't falling. So for Jaden McDaniels to only have 1 rebound after he's been, a godsend on the glass for the most of the season has been, tonight was a huge bummer in that regard. Yeah. Anthony Edwards only 2 rebounds. You have to wonder, okay, how much of that was Ant not wanting to go up with that? He normally grabs the ball with his right hand and brings it down and kind of, clasps it against his left hand. So you wonder if that was a factor. But then Naz Reid and Nickeil Alexander-Walker, only 4 total rebounds between them and 50 minutes played. And it's just a problem. And I think that's a way that the Timberwolves can impose their physicality, even when they're not getting foul calls on the other end of the floor. They're struggling to finish offensively, is, try to make up for it on the defensive end. I mean, the Wolves gave up, 9 offensive rebounds for 16 second chance points and allowed Indiana to rebound 35% of their missed twos. And again, the high water mark in the league in offensive rebound percentage is about 36%. So it's almost as bad as you can get as an NBA team. And those are just things that have to get cleaned up. And it was a bummer that they kind of wasted a really good Rudy Gobert game. Rudy was -3 in the 34 minutes that he played. And before Finch pulled the starters with about 2.5, 3 minutes left, the Wolves were -14 in the minutes that Rudy sat. To give you an idea of just how important Rudy was, I thought he thoroughly outplayed Miles Turner. Turner shot just 2 of 9 when Gobert was the primary defender. Thomas Bryant, their backup 5, shot 0 of 3 when Rudy Gobert was their primary on that. And Rudy did a great job keeping them away from the basket and forcing them to take contested 3-point jump shots. And then just a quick stat for you as well. The Pacers shooting, with respect to Gobert on the floor versus off the floor. When Gobert was on the floor, the Pacers shot 23 of 44 from 2. That's 52%. That's below league average by about 4 or 5 percentage points. And then when he was off the floor, they shot 9 of 14, 64% from 2 in that time. So they just had a really easy time getting into the paint and getting good looks in the paint when Gobert was on the bench. And I didn't have enough time to check how many of their offensive rebounds came when Gobert was off the floor, but it just felt like the communication too in the front court between Julius Randle and Naz Reid just wasn't there. And I don't know how much of that was in part because they were playing Nickeil Alexander-Walker at that 3 spot a little bit more than Jaden McDaniels, who normally does in that front court pairing. So who knows there? But I think the guys got to be able to help Rudy out more on the glass, and that 100%. Takes everybody.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well said there. Good breakdown. Couple minutes left. I just want to talk about this Suns preview Friday night. Then we'll wrap up as we always do with what we'll be talking about. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode also brought to us by BetterHelp. When your schedule gets packed with work, projects, kids, whatever it may be, it's easy to let your priorities start to slip, even when we know what makes us happy. But when you feel like you got no time for yourself, the non-negotiables, like therapy, they become more important than ever. If you've been thinking about starting therapy, maybe it's time to give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, and it's designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited for your schedule. So simple. All you got to do, fill out a brief questionnaire. You get matched up with the licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists at any time for no additional charge. Never skip therapy day with BetterHelp. Go visit BetterHelp.com/lockedon today. You're getting 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/lockedon. All right, 3 days of rest. Then it's the Phoenix Suns, Friday night, 7 p.m. tip-off. One of 9 games remaining on the schedule. Talk to me about the matchup and just how desperately they need to start finding some momentum again as this season wears down. Phoenix, by the way, 1 Oh, no, a half game now. Half game back from the 10 spot, 34-37. They play the Bucks tonight, but they have won 3 in a row, 6-4 in their last 10.
Yeah, the Suns have been elite offensively of late. Their offensive rating of about a 124 last five, which is sky high. And so they've also been doing a great job on the glass on both ends of the floor. They're top 5, top 6 in an offensive rebound percentage, defensive rebound percentage. They've been locking down the paint much better. They've been winning on second chance points on both ends of the floor. They've been top 5 in both second chance, really all 3 phases in terms of scored, allowed, and differential in second chance points. And then, they've done an excellent job of sharing the ball. They haven't been turning it over much. They've been super unselfish, and Kevin Durant and Devin Booker have certainly played a huge role in that. And Bradley Beal sounds like he's not going to play. He's been clocking that PTO big time with what they're calling a hamstring strain. But I don't know if that's injury related or not. I think it's fair to question that at this point. And yeah, I just think that they've looked significantly better with Bradley Beal off the court, and it's been interesting to see how much Suns fans have been frustrated with Mike Budenholzer over their rotation for not playing Ryan Dunn and Colin Gillespie enough. But yeah, I just they're kind of a fascinating team in terms of you look at how they've done over the course of the season, and just how much of it has been total, riding a roller coaster with way more time spent, down here than up here. But yeah, I mean, you can't discount the Suns, especially with Beal out. I think that does a lot for just kind of the collective makeup of the team. And if you're bringing in another guy behind Bradley Beal that certainly is going to care more about winning basketball, whether that's a rookie in Ryan Dunn or Issa Ogadoro or Colin Gillespie. It's just, I feel like anything would be an upgrade over what they're going to get from Bradley Beal at this stage, considering how everybody inside that building feels about Bradley Beal, seemingly from the outside looking in. So again, got to do a really good job of containing, dribble drives from Devin Booker and Tyus Jones and Kevin Durant, because they can do a really good job of sharing the ball and whipping it around the perimeter when when defenses aren't reacting the way that they need to be, and containing that penetration inside. So that's what we saw all year in the regular season last year against the Suns when they were at their best, and certainly the Timberwolves have gotten the better of them since then. But I think again, it's a good opportunity for the Timberwolves to kind of flex their muscle inside against a team that's not going to offer a ton of resistance inside. They've done a much better job in the glass, especially. But I don't think that should dissuade the Wolves from crashing the offensive glass and trying to create some easy scoring looks that way, because the Suns, unlike the Pacers, really do not want to get out and run in transition very much. They want to be a half-court team. They want to play in isolation quite a bit, playing that high spread pick and roll and play through Kevin Durant in the middle of the floor. So should be a good opportunity for the Wolves to get back. Should be a home game Friday night. Target Center, hopefully we'll have some better energy and have more reasons to get up and loud than they have in recent games. And again, anytime you get to see guys like Kevin Durant and Bradley Beal, Kevin Durant and Devin Booker, it's always a fun time.
When you lose as a team like they did tonight, do you just want to go out there the very next night and just try to wash that taste out of your mouth? Or do you enjoy these 3 days off to kind of regroup, re-rally, and kind of let the air out of the building a little bit in a good way, as far as just like not living in the moment and not playing out of your own element, so to speak, and trying to play hero ball the next night is kind of what I'm getting at. What do you think, just in general, that is kind of the consensus around the NBA?
Yeah, I think the consensus around the NBA is that, these guys are competitors and they don't want that taste in their mouth to linger for, 3, 4, 5 days. I think, the only case in which you're probably grateful to have a few more days off is if, one, you're at home, and two, you've got guys that are banged up, and that's certainly the case with the Wolves and Anthony Edwards. So hopefully that thumb heals up and he'll be ready to go come Friday.
100%. Well said. Great breakdown as always. You're elite. T-Wolves outplayed, out-hustled tonight, lose to the Pacers twice in 1 week, 119, 103, 41 and 32 on the year. That's 9 games above 500. Now they're 1 game back from Golden State and that 6th seed with just 9 games to play. As always, huge shout out to all you guys, all the everydayers out there that always make us your first listen. All you guys coming in the chat with us. Chat was on one tonight. They were ripping it up. And like and subscribe. As always, if you haven't already, please go follow Jack, too, on X if you haven't, at Jared Borman 13. You're going to be live from the Target Center Friday night versus the Suns?
Sure hope so.
All right. Well, not a lot of confidence in that decision, but I guess we'll play it by ear. We certainly hope you will be. But
hey, anytime you get to go watch Kevin Durant in person, I'm not passing that up. One of the all-time greats.
Maybe not too many more opportunities to see that man up close and personal here in Minnesota. Anyways. Unless. No, we don't have time. We got to get out of there. 3 nights off. Then it's the Suns. Phoenix Suns, KD, Friday night in the backyard at the Target Center. 7 p.m. tip. Catch you right here. Same time, same place. But until then, signing out.